Dr. Sudeep Shroff, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Anmol. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much. Do you go to therapy?
uh, Not at present, but if I share, I had my own share of, down moments in my life. And I did meet a couple of psychiatrists before I joined psychiatric. So, yeah, not anymore.
Okay.
But in the past, yes, I did visit and it helped.
Do you think a form of therapy is to sit down with yourself and just have a conversation with yourself about where you are in life and just reevaluating things?
Yeah, Anmol, reflection on what's going on in your life, taking a pause, and then trying to understand um, slowly about what's emerging in you in the form of your stream of thoughts and the kind of feelings and emotions that you are experiencing. Uh, that does help. But what's the issue here is that um even if you are an expert, in my opinion, when it comes to taking a therapy, it's always better if you visit somebody and not your own self.
Is it
So,
because of the bias you have for yourself?
uh, yes, bias is one because, we all are the creatures of our habits. And also, we all have our own share of, conditioning. So, we happen to see life through the fixed, frames and the windows that we have through which we look at the world. That is one thing. The second thing is that, when we are suffering, we seem to be, you know, very much kind of drowned in our own thoughts and feelings. So when we are very deep in the pain with our emotions and thinking, then taking the help for our own self is not a good idea. Unless and until if you have been training yourself or you have gone through, sessions of mindfulness and somehow you have become more skillful enough to create a distance between who you are and what your experiences are unfolding in front of you.
Is that what you call self-awareness?
Yes, I mean, self-awareness or mindfulness or, self-reflection, these are all quite similar terms. But if I want to explain to you in very brief, it's all about, uh, getting into the state where you happen to become an observer of your own experiences. And I can tell you that this is not just a theory. You can learn to uh, shift from your habitual engrossed in the thoughts and feelings kind of living, and then get into a state where you happen to feel and experience that you are an observer observing what's going on in
How
your awareness.
how do you do that though?
The simplest way to begin is, which I happen to tell my patients, clients, is to becoming aware about your sensory experiences. So let me explain it this way. We have experiences of thoughts, we have experiences of our emotions, feelings, and at the same time, we experience the world through our five senses. Most of the time, people who suffer, they are, you know, either thinking about what's yet to come or they are being trapped by the painful memories of the past. So when we begin to pay attention to the present moment by becoming aware about the sensations around us. So, say for example, I tell my patients to See, pay attention to if there is any sound coming from outside the window, or if there is a fan, moving on top of them, or there is anything else on the roads that you can listen to.
So literally pay
Uh,
attention to your current surroundings and
yes,
all
starting
your
with
senses.
sound, and then your feet touching the floor, your back touching the chair, and then any taste in the mouth, and then paying attention to that your chest is moving up and down, your abdomen is moving up and down, and you are breathing. And once you do that, then maybe after a few minutes, 5, 6 minutes of paying attention to the sensation, you will gain some ability to pay attention to the thoughts that are crossing your awareness.
Okay. Now, I wanted to ask you, because you understand human behavior, that's literally what you've gone to school for, right? That's what you've studied. When you deal
Hmm.
with people in your personal life, whether it's, let's say, actually any human interaction apart from when you're talking to your clients in a session, do you use those kind of skills and your experience to, you know, let me rephrase
Make
this.
judgment and
Yeah,
assessment
do you
about.
use that judgment to, you know, get that conversation in your favor? Let's say you're negotiating with somebody, or let's say you want something out of somebody. Do you use that?
Well, this is a common question. People do ask to therapists or psychiatrists or psychologists, but usually, no, it is not the case because, you know, therapeutic relationship is very different uh, from any other relationship. I mean, no patient or a client of mine, when I interact, there is no, flavor of friendship or any other kind of, fragrance or flavor to
Mm,
that relationship. It's purely a therapeutic relationship where uh, uh, my job or anybody's doing therapy or sessions or psychiatric consultation, the role is to help the other person and then try to understand what's happening there. So usually, no, this doesn't happen in other relationships unless and until in the other relationships, if somebody, explicitly opens up and tells that, I have this problem. Could you please listen to me? And if that kind of context arises during conversation with other relationships, then it does some help us to. It happens. There is an automatic switch that you then bring in a therapeutic alliance kind of scenario there.
do you ever use it to
But
your advantage when you're negotiating with someone?
um, see, any therapeutic relationship is not to manipulate the other person, frankly speaking. I would say far from it.
But let's say outside
Therap-
of therapy, let's say you're not talking to a patient. Let's say um, you want to get some renovations done and you're talking to a contractor, for your office. You understand what the
okay.
guy wants. Do you use any tips and tricks that you've learned from your experience to deal with that person so that you can get the best deal for yourself?
No, Anmol, that's very different from therapeutic conversation. It's all about negotiation skills. It's about
Hmm.
a business dealing kind of a skill. It's about selling capacity and how do you sell and make your ideas sell or make your proposal work. It's a very different type of interaction and skill set that you employ at that time. The
Hmm.
context that you are proposing is where I need to think about my advantage, my benefits. So
Right.
it's more of a businessy kind of a scenario than a therapeutic setup. But yes,
Okay.
if you are struggling with some aspects of your mental health, say if you have issues with your self confidence, your self esteem, and if you feel that people take advantage of you, if you have those kind of challenges in you, then there will be struggle in those scenarios also. So mental health comes into the picture that way, that if you have healthy self-esteem, you know that you are efficacious and then you can make things work. If you work on those areas of your mental health, then any dealings, if it's a business dealing or selling your ideas or financial negotiations,
Hmm.
so you can be assertive, you can say no, or you can insist that this needs to be done. All those things are healthy way of breaking your way out in those scenarios.
What would you say to someone who does not have self-respect or a certain sense of self-worth? What would be your
Um,
advice?
in the simplest way, if I want to tell that person uh, that, which I strongly believe, that all of us are equally worthy of, uh, you know, all the aspects of our, world and life. But if somebody is struggling and not feeling worthy enough, then he or she needs to definitely get in touch with a nearby, starting with any counselor or a professional, and open up that um, this is what I'm struggling with. I don't feel myself worthy enough, and I let other people always run over me and take advantage of me. And these are the patterns I have been observing. So, what's going on? Could you please help me? Kind
Hmm.
of.
I mean, like you said in the beginning, like it takes a lot of work, right? It doesn't happen overnight. But when you were saying this, I thought of something. Like, I'll give you my example. I
Mm-hmm.
took about a year and a half before I went to therapy, and I knew I needed it. There were
Mm-hmm.
so many aspects of my life that needed fixing, and I had to work on them with a therapist. But then for that year and a half, I was putting it off or procrastinating it and just avoiding it. Why do people do that?
Usually, common scenarios that we happen to see is that, number one, going to a mental health professional is still considered or looked upon, negatively. Most of the time, people fail to identify that it's a problem. The life goes on, and people don't realize that this is not normal. You are not sleeping for last 3-4 weeks well. You wake up very early. You become irritable on very slightest of things, for
Hmm.
slightest of things. You are not able to concentrate well, and people don't see that this is a problem. People believe that होता है और चला जाएगा. And many people end up in self-medicating themselves. That's
Okay.
another unfortunate second trap that they are pushing themselves into.
So when you say self-medicating, do you mean actually taking medications or do you mean addictions?
I mean, both.
Okay.
Uh, the psychiatric medications, usually uh, the chemists, they don't issue without a prescription.
Hmm.
But if, say, somebody has a family member going through something and then they have some medicines left, they start using that. But the major portion of this situation is that people get into taking substances to feel better.
Okay.
Nicotine, alcohol, marijuana. And then again, that's the reason people get into the delay and
Right.
not reaching to the right person at the right time for the right reason.
Hmm. You just
And when
delay
they
your
reach,
own progress.
and Anmol, when they reach, the problem is now multiple times folded.
Yeah. It's bigger than when you actually began.
Yeah, you were initially struggling with low mood and feeling anxious and sleep issue, but then now you have on top of that your substance related issues. And then maybe because of that, you have created more debts, or maybe you have created some relationship issues, maybe some legal issues. And so when you reach to the therapist, you have already compounded your problem than what it was in the beginning.
It feels like you're describing my life. But
Oh,
I'm glad you mentioned marijuana, because I personally know a lot of people who kind of take it just to avoid problems in their life, and I know it's become such a common thing, because it started off as people saying that marijuana is medication, and it's got therapeutic uses, which it does.
mm.
But now people have started abusing it. What are your thoughts on it?
uh, I mean, in India also, Mol, for last a decade and a half, we are seeing that use of cannabis products, plants, the flowers, and the concentrates is going up. So it's definitely rising up. And I believe that, somehow uh, a country that you are in, Canada, and some of the states in US, they have made it legal.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge and understanding, the legalization is because they wanted to regulate the channel, through which the products or this material flows, right?
Yes.
That was the reason. But I think legalization changed perceptions in the minds of people. The risk perception has changed. Now people talk about that as it has been made legalized, this should be, harmless, or this should be fine.
They're not scared of getting caught anymore if they're smoking in public, even, because in Canada there are 10 dispensaries right near my house. I can just walk and I can just buy weed, and I can
Mm.
smoke a joint wherever I can smoke cigarettes, so it's
Yes.
as normal. They don't have a
So they
fear
are
of
not
getting caught.
afraid. What I am emphasizing is that they have started perceiving it as less harmful. But right now, that if we collect the data, it definitely tells that we need to be careful.
Okay.
It does change the brain um, in a way, and that in the long run, it does produce issues with anxiety, your ability to coordinate your daily level of energy, your concentration, memory, and there are cannabis use disorders which are also not that infrequent. Even psychosis, cannabis induced.
So
So it has, surprisingly, when people, I mean, unfortunately, I would say, people read on the internet, and uh, they happen to read that our brain also has endogenous, cannabinoids.
mm,
Um, and so we are taking something which we already have, God has made for us, um, these molecules. So what is the harm? It's like a hormone. I mean, one of my patients was saying it's like a hormone. You take melatonin, it's same, because the body also produces cannabinoids. But it is not that simple. The mechanisms inside the brain are very complex, and when you take something outside, it tempers the uh, receptors and the production, degradation, and the information flow in the brain in a way which is not healthy in the long run.
okay, got it. um Now, while we are there, can we talk about the psychology of addiction, and not just like drugs in general, addiction to anything? Now people are addicted to scrolling on Instagram, or just scrolling in general. So what is the psychology
Yeah.
behind it?
Say, Anmol, we human beings are made in such a way. I mean, we are built with. Let me make it more simple for people to understand that uh, we are built with I'm simplifying as much as possible. So we are
Yes, please.
kind of built with three types of kind of circuitries or mechanisms in the brain. One is that some of the substances or some of the activities, when we get in those activities or when we take those substances, there is a pulsatile surge in the dopamine level in the brain in few circuits. Now, when I say surge, means there is dopamine which is going on, which is at a base level, but
Mm.
particular substance or a particular activity can trigger that surge of dopamine. And that feels good to animals, to human beings also. And it feels very good when there is a surge. So this is called a pleasure phenomenon or a pleasure mechanism or pleasure circuit. You feel pleasurable after doing that activity or getting that substance. Now, the side by side, the mechanism is that it's called reward mechanism. So what happens is that when you feel that pleasure, the brain notices what made you feel that pleasure. So that substance, that activity is then a kind of labeled as a reward. This activity makes me feel pleasurable. And then there is a third phenomenon. It's called, addiction circuit. That means that once you have pleasure from those activities and the substances, the brain has identified them as rewards, then there is a tendency in us to seek that reward again and again. Right? So somehow a part of you knows that in the long run, taking this substance or doing this activity again and again, maybe say gambling or something else, is harmful. But the deeper areas of your brain, which are not in your conscious control completely, they tend to kick in and in a kind of sort of automatic way, you tend to seek that substance and activity more and more going forward. The another aspect to this whole system is that the addictive substance or addictive activities, they have the tendency to develop tolerance. So maybe if you are initially taking 2 bags of something or twice or thrice in a week, but then after few months, the same amount of quote unquote dose will not trigger that much rise of dopamine, or your system will not feel that much of the pleasure out of those activities.
Does that
So you
affect
will
the
then,
baseline? Because you mentioned baseline earlier.
yeah, baseline means, see, our neurons, our brain is an electrical and a chemical system. So there are ongoing baseline release of neurotransmitters in the synapse, the space between two neurons. So some activities, they exist. I mean, if we eat food, then also we feel better, right? Good food also makes you feel good. There
Depends
is a
on
pleasure
what
there.
good is.
There
For
is a
some
pleasure
people,
there
good
also.
is fried and salty food, but for some people, it's fibrous and high protein food.
Yeah. So fibrous and high protein food, I mean, it is known that kind of you can train your brain to make particular activity and particular substances, particular kind of food to be more pleasurable. But there are some default substances and activities which make people feel people get pleasure out of it. Say, for example, sexual activity. It's pleasurable for all, almost. Taking some substances, stimulants, or morphine, and all those things, they do trigger and give surge of dopamine. So any one of us who takes, it does make you feel better. Sugar, however, it seems that most of the people tend to find it giving them some kind of feeling good sense.
Okay. Because now we're talking about addiction, there's obviously an opposite side to it, which is self control. And you only see this with people who've, gone really deep into addiction, or at least in their head are really deep into it. What switch flips in the brain that you decide to, leave it? And you're like, okay, I'm going to control myself from now. And they actually follow through on it.
See, for most of the people who are clinically addicted, for them, Anmol, it's more about a brain mechanism. So we now have enough evidences to tell that addiction is more about a biological phenomenon than just somebody is lacking in willpower. As I had explained to you before, that the areas of the brain which are not in your conscious control, they tend to kick in, and the person who is addicted clinically tends to get into that cycle of pleasure, feeling rewarded, and then seeking. And then pleasure, feeling rewarded, then seeking. And with time, the tolerance develops. So when somebody decides to get out of it, most of the time that we see in our clinical setup is the commonest, but we see that the commonest one actually doesn't produce better results. But the commonest reason for which the person seeks help is the family pressure.
Okay.
If the wife, kids, parents, they find out, and then they, sort of quote unquote emotionally blackmail, and then they push them, and then they come for the help.
Does that happen with your patients a lot?
Yes. And these people are, in my experience, they are the least likely to get the better results, come out of it.
Why is that?
Because there is no motivation from the person's side. So for a short period of time, just to appease family members, or there could be a momentary thought in them of ठीक है ये अच्छा नहीं है सब बोलते हैं चलो छोड़ दो, and there is a momentary kind of feeling to get out of it. So they come, they take help, but they cannot maintain the intervention which are suggested to them. And so they drop out and they get back to their addicted life. The second set of people who feel that they should come out of it is either the substance itself produced some serious bodily physical health problems, or it triggered some mental health problems. And then they are seeking help for those reasons. And then they happen to realize that the main culprit, or one of the major factors contributing to their ill health, mental or physical, is the substance. The third set of people is that who have their family or personal life going very bad. If the marriages are about to be broken, job is in danger, or they had some major accidents in the state of their intoxication or substance consumed states, and then they suddenly wake up and realize that no, this is costing me highly in my other areas of my life. So that's another set of people.
Okay.
And then they come for help. So the first has the least favorable outcome. Second and third, yes, there are hopes there.
Okay, got it. According to you, what is stopping people living their best life?
Their best life, what do you mean by the best life?
By best life, I mean a life where you are satisfied with what you're doing, with your, in all aspects of your life, whether it be work, whether it be fitness, whether it be family, relationships,
Mm.
where you feel you're doing your best and where you respect yourself at the end of the day.
Right. So
And
what is
I'd
stopping
also
people
like
from
to know
living the
your
best life?
definition of what best life is.
In my opinion, living the best life is that you, uh, first of all, live life consciously. That's what I strongly believe. You make conscious choices uh, when it comes to what kind of work you do, what kind of food you eat, what kind of people you get involved with, how do you spend your day. The life where you feel that it is your endeavors, your activities is meaningful. You feel that you are making the best use of your body and brain to uh, have a good life for yourself and the people around in the
Mm.
material arena also. And also you are satisfied in a way that you are making contribution to the people around you and to the world. Now, combining all those things, in my opinion, is that you are living a life which is worthy, or which is
Which you can be
which we
proud
all
of.
should, which all we all should progress towards. I mean, that's
Okay.
what our agenda needs to be. That we work, we learn, and we integrate our learning, and then in our daily living, we express and manifest those aspects which fulfill the areas which I have just mentioned.
Mm.
And coming to your first question, what is stopping people from living this kind of life? Uh, I can tell you, Anmol, that we all have our own set of conditioning that we develop uh, over the course of our lives. Like some people are temperamentally on the softer side, some people are temperamentally more on a harder side. Temperamentally, some people are more irritable. Temperamentally, some people are more docile, kind of. So we come with some temperamental tendencies. The genetics play a significant role there uh, in shaping our brain and body. And then we go through a series of experiences, starting with our early life experiences with our parents, then school, then friends, teachers, then academic life, then work life, then romantic relationships, and all those things. Now, those experiences, they kind of condition ourselves to uh, think, feel, and behave in some specific ways. So I believe that this pattern of conditioning is somehow stopping us from living our full potential when it comes to those areas which I mentioned about.
Okay. And that can be changed.
Uh, it can be changed, but it's not easy. Had that been very easy, the world could be a different, very different scenario, right? That once we become aware of the fact that, like any other human being, I do have the potential to, uh, you know, develop myself in a way where I nurture positive emotions, I express positive emotions, I uh, behave, act, and do things and stuff in my life, which I said is beneficial to me, my people around me, and the world. Uh, so once we become aware about that there is a potential in all of us, then we need to realize that potential can be kind of masked because of the conditioning. And then we stay committed to unlearn the patterns, which is stopping us from living the full potential, and learn new patterns, nurture those new patterns, and keep going. It's a lifelong, I can say, activity. There may not be any point in life
Fixed
where you will
timeline.
feel that now everything is done.
Hmm. What's the? I mean, what's the quickest way to change that? Is it your habits?
It is easier said than done. That changing your habits is the toughest. I mean, I happen to say that realization and self awareness is the first step. But then the next steps that we need to take after that, they seem to be harder than becoming self aware and having an insight.
Hmm.
Why? Because those patterns tend to drag us down. And those patterns are quite unconscious in the sense that, see, majority of our brain activities is not in our conscious awareness. There could be any trigger, maybe a particular kind of a person, maybe a particular life situation. Any of those can trigger phenomena and patterns in the areas of the brain which you are not consciously controlling, and then you are dragged down or dragged out of the track. So it's completely possible. I strongly advocate that it's possible, but it's a work.
Yeah, of course.
It's a work.
Of course. Have you read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear?
Oh yes, oh yes. I
Yeah,
think it's there in my
somewhere there.
on the books on the bookshelf. Yeah.
What did you learn from that book?
I mean, he said the right things. The one being very prominent is that start small and accumulating small,
Hmm.
uh, and wait for the tipping point, and
Where the 1%
things
actually takes over.
things change.
Has
I
that
think
has anything changed for you since you read that book, or have you used some of his techniques?
not exactly the techniques of the atomic habits, but yes, if I reflect back on my last couple of decades, I have definitely somehow become a person very different from in my early 20s. And not just atomic habits, input from many different sources, uh, different authors, different mentors, medical science, neuroscience, uh, spirituality, and all those things, they help putting me on a journey of becoming more conscious about how my day is spent.
This is a very textbook question, though. But would you give any advice to your 20-year-old self?
Yeah, I can tell my 20 years old self that take it easy. Things shall improve.
Hmm.
Things do improve. Uh, Not make the mountains out of moles, you know.
More. Okay. Are there
Um,
any practices that you do to keep your mental health sane?
um, for me, what has really helped is walking.
Okay.
That has helped me. Uh, the second thing is that I stay careful in the sense that now these days I'm mindful of slowing down. That is helping. Now, the slowing down means that, you know, in a day we have many to dos to pick, uh, and sometimes in the hurry of completing the list, uh, we do not give ourselves enough space and time to take pauses during the day. So, slowing down is helping.
Okay.
Reading about topics which are outside of your field. Say if somebody is in computer science, I suggest you read about history, you read about human civilization, or you read about biology, something like that. If somebody is in commerce, the same way you read about or explore art, So reading and exploring art also helps.
What does that do for you?
What? Reading or art?
I mean, exploring things outside of your arena or of your field.
It helps, Anmol, uh, in widening the way you look at life.
Okay.
So being a medical professional, there is very likely that I uh, might reduce everything to the processes of molecules in the brain and in the body. But when you read about uh, history, spirituality, civilization, then you somehow, happen to see other perspectives and then integrate that with your existing set of expertise or knowledge base or your academic training and see how it enhances the output that you can produce in your life and in
Okay.
your work.
All right. What is one practice you recommend anybody to do on a daily basis so that they can maintain, take care of their mental health?
Mindfulness.
That's one thing you recommend everyone doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any substantial, long lasting change from who you are today and who you want to become, maybe in next 5 years or a decade, it's the mindfulness that sets the foundational stone. Because unless and until you are able to observe what's going on, you have the then you are at the mercy of being trapped in your patterns, and then learning new patterns and incorporating that in who you are.
Okay.
So the single most that everybody can do, should do, is the mindfulness
What should they do to be
or
more
awareness.
mindful?
Maybe we can put it, there are few words: mindfulness, awareness meditation,
Okay.
uh,
Can you tell us how
self-guided.
it looks like, how being mindful looks like?
As I said, in the beginning of our talk, that you need to start with paying attention to the sensations around. And if you spend few minutes there, 5 minutes, 7 minutes there, then there is an experience of feeling that you are slowing down. And then, I tell my patients that when you are paying attention to the sensation, be careful that you don't think about the sensations. Now, that means that, say, if I am listening to a sound of air conditioner, I need not think about when the next service of the AC is due, right?
Okay.
Or how much I had paid for buying that piece of air conditioner, right? I
Right.
just need to learn, and it is possible. We all can do it because as children we have done that. Is to just get in touch or in tune with the frequency of sound,
Okay.
and then your feet touching the floor, the frequency of that touch sensation, and then the way you are breathing, the movements, the frequency, and this tune with the movements.
All right.
When you do that, then as I said, you slow down, and then when you start paying attention to what's going on in my mind at present, then there are chances that you may see that there is a thought, but it's not coming with a force. There is a thought coming that I have this in my meal after an hour, and then you see that, tomorrow then there is something to be done. So they come slowly, kind of, and you are able to make an observation of them, and you don't get carried away with them.
And I think it becomes better. You become better at doing that with practice as well. The more you keep on doing it, the more you keep on observing your thoughts.
Yeah, rather than saying it as a practice, so although people do tell that it's a meditation practice, I would prefer it's a repetition of your sessions, uh, because when there is a practice, there is a kind of pressure in you to become better at it.
Hmm.
My suggestion is to just show up for the activity every day
Okay.
and doing it.
I agree with that because, like, for me, working out has become a big thing now. On the days that I don't feel like going, I just show up, even though I'm not doing my entire session. I work out
Mm,
for 20, 30 minutes. I come out and I still feel better than I did before the session. So I think being in the moment and, just showing up eventually
yep,
adds on to your overall progress. Well, that being said, sir,
yeah.
I really appreciate the conversation we had today. You had given me a lot to think about, to be honest. Is there anything you want to leave our listeners with before we let you go?
No, I wish all good luck. And as I said, the message from my side is that we all have the potential to live the best possible version of ourselves. We are limited by our genetic tendencies and environmental conditioning. But in spite of those limitations, we do have the capacity to unlearn the patterns which are not serving us, and learn, incorporate, and nurture the patterns uh, which make us better going forward.
That's very profound. Where can people go to follow your work, and what do they do if they want to get in touch with you?
They may start with my Instagram, the same name, Sudeep Shroff.
I'll also link it down in the description. I will link the website down below as well. And for the one who's listening right now, if you need help, you can get in touch with him. Uh, go through everything that we spoke about, and that's just a little bit of the knowledge that you've shared with us, which we are really grateful for. Well, thank you so much for your time, Doc, and you have a great day.
Thank you, Anmol, and same to you.
Thank you so much.